Want to welcome everybody, and especially welcome the iBank and GoBiz. We'll be hearing from them in a minute. My name is Heidi Pickman. I'm the Vice President of Programs and Policy at Cameo, and we're thrilled to have our guests on today. Just a little, some point of introduction so we can get an idea, little tech info. Just so you know, your audio is muted when you are on the call, which is great. Let's keep it muted while you're not talking. In order to control your audio, what you would like to do is take your cursor down to the bottom of your screen, and on the left, you should see a mic icon. You can control your volume on and off there. And you're also welcome, and we're going to practice and do some chatting today in the chat box. It's the little icon that looks like the cartoon blurbs you'll see. We are recording this, and you're free to share. We'll send all registrants a link as soon as we can. Please be patient. We have been doing lots of content, so it might take us longer than normal. So this is my standard slide. We don't really have slides except for introductions, so we probably won't share the slides. They're not going to be that useful for you, but we will share links and all other resources. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that Cameo has a resource page. It's accessible from our homepage. I will put the link into chat as soon as I stop talking, unless somebody else beats me to it. Some of the other stuff that we're doing that I thought would be interesting to this group is the Cdfi Essentials class starts tomorrow. We have 9 participants in our cohort. It's a monthly cohort model that helps people with their loan program. The TA providers think that's not happening Monday at 4 o'clock, so we'll have to reschedule that. So that will be rescheduled. Be on the lookout for that. If just want to basically let everybody know this was happening for TA providers as well. And our third Thursday webinar next week is going to be creating good jobs in a crisis. So that's what's coming up next week. We are going week to week and forward promoting rather than month to month, just because everything is moving so fast. Before we get to Isabel and Emily from GoBiz, I would like to stop sharing my screen. And I would like to invite everybody to introduce themselves in the chat room, who you are. We have 35 people. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go around and have every single person introduce themselves, but let's have your name and your organization. Type that into the chat bar, into the chat box, which if you haven't found it by now, it's at the bottom. Take the cursor to the bottom. And the reason we're doing this is so that Isabel and Emily can see who's on. We have Women's Economic Ventures, Marcia, Carla DeLone from Main Street Launch, Gwendy from Opportunity Fund, the Cameo staff is here, Clearinghouse Cdfi is here, Rachel Smith from the RCAC, Zia Mara from Small Business Majority, Axion San Diego in the House, Nonprofit Finance Fund, Santa Cruz Community Credit Unions here, TMC Community Capital, California Statewide, Genesis LA, El Pájaro. So we got new lenders, old lenders. We got Linda from the Housing Trust Fund in Ventura County. Thank you all for we have many more than that on the phone, because I see quite a few more people and friends that are here, and thank you for joining us. But so we do have a statewide audience, everyone, and just to give Isabel and Emily an idea of where you're at in interesting. I am logged in. Somebody must have launched the poll, or I cannot launch the poll because it says there's some little tech glitch. I'm going to call on one person to launch the poll. And Carolina, can you do that for me? No. Susan, can you do that for me?
Maybe.
Okay. The poll is basically to get an idea of where you all are at in your process. Nope. Okay. It's, I don't know. We're having some tech issues with our poll.
Emily?
Is Emily here? Oh yeah, Emily is here. Emily,
Yes, I'm here.
are you able to launch a poll if you take it down to the bottom of your screen?
I can launch polling, yeah.
Oh, great, because somehow none of us can, and I'm not sure why. So if you can launch the poll to get an idea of where you're at in your process as far as the state loan guarantee program. Can everybody see the poll? I think everybody except for the hosts can see the poll, except for Emily can see. So Emily, when you see that most of the people have participated, you can go ahead and stop, but let's give everybody a second or two, another 30 seconds to read the poll and tell us where they're at in their thought process around this, the state loan guarantee program. So, and then you can, there should be a button that says end polling.
Okay, end the poll now.
You got a good more than 50% participation, I would say.
34% have voted, 42%.
So let's get a few more people. Let's get that up to a little bit higher so we can get an idea of where people are at. And then you can launch the poll. Whew. Everybody doing okay today? Just kind of sort of nod your head. The other thing that's down at below, or like this little reaction button, you can put a little thumbs up or clap if you feel like you're doing okay today.
That's right.
All right, good. Glad to see the thumbs up. Emily.
All right, so we have 24% who are, their org is participating in the program, about 29% whose orgs are strongly considering participating, 6% who are mulling it over, 18% who are just hearing about the program, so don't know enough, and 12% who are not going to participate.
Great. And if anybody who is participating already wants to pop your name into chat, that would be really good. Say participate. Don't just put your name in there. Participate in your org name. That would be great. And welcome all those other people who have joined us, from Kurt from CDC, Tate from Access Plus, Sandra from Pollo. So with that, I do want to mention that we're going to try and end just a few minutes earlier or stay on the line longer with another topic. I want to get to today is that Marcia Bailey has emailed her, or wrote her congressperson about how the PPP program is working, and I'd like her to be able to have some time to share that. So if you can stay on with us just past the top of the hour, I think it's an important topic to talk about as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Carolina, who's going to.
Thank you, Heidi. It's good to see you all virtually. I think we're getting better at this, and I know sound and internet has been a challenge for a lot of us. So I'm going to be brief. We're very excited to be able to put these webinars together, and especially this one. We've been really talking about, and we heard last week about the Governor Newsom announcing the $15 million state guarantee program to help small businesses throughout the state. And I've had conversations with many of you. I've had conversations really talking about how we can better utilize this program and how we can participate, or how could we improve and maybe make suggestions to help our businesses that we work with. So talking with Isabel and Emily, we thought it would be a good opportunity for all of us to come together and really hear from them what the implementation of this program would be, the next steps, and maybe really understand how the program would work. So I'm really excited for Isabel and Emily to be able to join us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with Camia's members and partners. And without talking anymore, because I know what you're all wanting to really hear is not from me, I wanted to just turn it over to Isabel first. So Isabel Guzman, the small business advocate at GoBiz. Isabel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you connecting with your network like this. The announcements made last week and our continued work on these issues is highly important, and we recognize the challenging situation you all find yourselves in as lenders and CDFIs in this marketplace. I think for most of you, you're familiar with GoBiz. GoBiz is the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. It basically is responsible for attracting, retaining, and growing businesses in the state. There are several independent offices within it, and that includes iBank, California's infrastructure bank, as well as my office, the Office of the Small Business Advocate. My office is focused on providing information and also being an advocate across state programs, state agencies, and the private market sector as well. So the state has been working diligently to try to ensure that California businesses have been able to access the federal stimulus or have support in the state. And I think it was truly with that intent that the governor made a series of announcements last week. And so just wanted to give you context for that as well. This was on right at the beginning, Thursday night before the Paycheck Protection Program was scheduled to roll out. Still quite a bit of uncertainty in terms of liquidity in the marketplace, in terms of banks' interest in this program. Guidelines really, were not and still not completely finished at this point. But so the state, what the governor did was announce, two really critical programs that we thought could immediately help California businesses. The one which was definitely immediate was the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration's announcement that it would allow small business taxpayers an ability to extend their payments for 12 months, basically. So in effect, a bridge loan to be able to allow them to keep that cash, especially for those hard-hit industries, because obviously the ones who are paying the most sales tax are those retail establishments, restaurants, etc. So they could access, plan for up to $50,000 in that immediate cash, retention for their sales and use tax. And by delaying that payment, we were hoping to get more cash in the hands of those businesses affected. Previously, the governor had already announced an automatic 90-day deferral of payments for small businesses who had taxes under $1 million, but this was an expansion of that, allowing for 12 months. This is a program that does need to be applied for, unlike the automatic extension, but this is something that's available. So I know a lot of firms have started to access it. On the other side, of the equation, we recognize that there were going to be a lot of small businesses that would benefit from the federal programs, and really our intent was to launch this announcement on the heels of the Paycheck Protection Program, because the ultimate goal is to get as many small businesses from California to the PPP as a forgivable loan into the economic injury disaster loan with a $10,000 advance grant. So that was really the ultimate push, but knowing that there would be some excluded, the governor allocated $50 million to recapitalize Small Business Finance Center with an emphasis on setting up a disaster relief loan guarantee program that was targeted and focused on low income and those ineligible, especially for example, the undocumented populations who have businesses in the state, to be able to access $50,000 or under in capital. And so that's the focus, the intent, what we're trying to ensure happens. And what I would say before turning it over to the expert Emily Burgos, who is manager of the Small Business Finance Center and who is an incredible resource and expert in all of the state's capital programs, truly. But what I want to emphasize is that we continue to look at options, we continue to evaluate the marketplace and understand some of the other issues as the Federal Reserve acts, as SBA and Treasury acts, and as Congress acts to continue to roll out federal stimulus. So I'll pass it on to Emily, who's going to go a deep dive now that I've set the context.
You're muted, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. And I definitely, want to focus in on this current initiative. Before I dig into that, it looks like most of you have engaged with us before in one way or another and are generally familiar with the guarantee program and how it works. But for those who aren't, I'll just give kind of like a quick primer before we dive into this specific initiative. So the loan guarantee program was developed in the late 60s. We can provide an 80% loan guarantee on loans to small businesses for eligible purposes. We we get those guarantees out into the community through our local financial development corporations. So at the state level, I set the eligibility criteria, and then through our 7 FDCs throughout the state, they're going to look at the credit of each transaction, right? Because we're trying to find a balance between loans that are just terrible and shouldn't be made, and loans that are too good and don't need a guarantee. So Juan Carlos is laughing, I can see his face. That's really his role, and I pay him for that expertise. Oftentimes we get asked, you know, what's the difference between you and the SBA? And I think he is the difference. We don't have a 1,000-page SOP that determines what collateral must be used in every situation. We have people who look at these transactions from a holistic perspective and make real human decisions. So, you know, I always point to my FDCs as my greatest resource, and this is just another example of how they're going to be able to help with that. So with the current initiative that we have, we are targeting folks that fall outside of SBA's criteria, folks that aren't going to be able to access SBA, you know, including those that are in low wealth communities and undocumented. And the way to do that is by tapping into our Cdfi community. So, you know, we're really looking for loans that are 50,000 and under. In the guarantee program for disaster, we would be able to guarantee those up to 95%. Because of the high volume of loans we anticipate seeing, we're instituting an expedited process so that we can give you a review and approval within 24 hours, so we're not holding up your process. In the traditional guarantee program, every single loan is reviewed by, we'll say Juan Carlos because he's on the call, but by the FDC, by the FDC's loan committee, and possibly their board. And for what we're hoping to do in such a short amount of time, that's just not reasonable here, especially with transactions of this size. So we are working through our FDCs to partner with CDFIs to agree on a loan profile, if you will. Once that profile is agreed upon, we're just continuously accepting applications that meet that criteria so that we're able to give a quick response on each loan, so you can feel comfortable when you make it that you would get that 95% guarantee. And that kind of in a nutshell is how we're looking to do that. In order to sign up for the program, it's a 1-page certification, and I check to make sure you're in good standing with your regulatory body. And then I would connect you with an FDC who can work with you on the specifics of how you guys want to arrange the enrollment process. The last thing I wanted to touch on was funding. As Isabel mentioned, you know, we have $50 million for this disaster program that's, you know, targeted to this particular population, and I'm going to be able to leverage that 2 to 1. That being said, you know, I want to make sure that I have enough capacity to guarantee the loans that you folks are looking to do. So at this point, I'm asking for folks to let me know if they're interested, and if they are, to let me know to what degree they anticipate using the program. That way I can make sure, you know, if I'm going to be oversubscribed, I can start asking for additional funds now. And I'll kind of break there and see if anybody has any questions about the program or the current initiative.
Emily, this is Heidi. I do have some questions that somebody emailed me before, but do you want me to pull up your website? Or
you know,
later? Or...
Let's do the questions first, and then we can pull up the website.
Okay. So has anybody been making any of these loans yet? Or so that we have a few organizations that are participating. Can we call them out on this call?
Yes,
no?
we can. I'm not sure they'd like that, but
Okay.
We have some folks that are in the works that I'm not comfortable announcing as of yet.
Okay.
But I was informed today, you know, Banker Small Business CDC, always being ready and prepared to utilize state resources, has already begun sending us loans for conditional approval. It's my understanding that they already have enough coming in the pipeline to completely use all the money they had set aside for disaster lending. So they were the first in, and then now they're the first out.
Oh, okay. And then when you mean by capacity, you mean how much money they want, right? How much money they want to lend out and guarantee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to keep tabs on how much I think I need, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So if I have if I have folks telling me, oh, I want, this one wants 5 million, this one plans to lend 10 million, I want to make sure I have the capacity to guarantee those for you. And if I don't, I want to start asking for more money now and not wait until I run out.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions here. Are there fees for enrolling a loan?
Yeah, so there are fees, and actually I see some of these questions as well.
Yep.
There is a 2.5% fee on the guarantee amount. It's a one-time fee and a $250 documentation fee. I like to tell folks that's how Juan Carlos gets to eat. It's the only payment he gets for participating as an FDC in this program, and for the wonderful assistance that he provides. I see another question that says, can we get guarantees for loans we've already approved? We have to approve the guarantee before the loan is made. So if it's already been approved but it hasn't been made yet, then potentially, yes, you can get a guarantee on it. If the loan has already been executed and funded, then we won't be able to assist.
Okay.
I see another question, and I'll read it. We have used the program in the past. Only once was it set up as a payment guarantee. My concern is that we have to foreclose on our collateral in order to preserve the guarantee. For vulnerable borrowers, this is the essential death knell. Yeah, so before I will pay a guarantee, we do require that collateral be liquidated or best effort. So there are times where perhaps you don't want to foreclose. We would need to have a conversation at that point, but if foreclosure is an option and getting the collateral is an option, I have to have it liquidated before I can pay a claim. So maybe we decide to sit on it for a bit. That may be a conversation. More often than not, what I see from banks is that the collateral isn't worth liquidating. I think my favorite, most common scenario is we took a car as collateral. It's worth, $1,000. And the auction house charges $1,000, so it's not worth liquidating. So we're not going to force that issue.
And then, oh yeah, I was going to say, how many more CDFIs are you looking for, and what's the allocation amount? I think you're looking at it the other way around, right?
I am. So it's definitely going to be done on a first come, first served basis, but I'm interested in any and all that are interested in using the program to make these disaster loans. And if I can get an estimated amount of how much you intend to lend for disaster, I can go back and ask for more money if I need it. I'm not doing it by allocation. It's really on a first come, first served basis.
I have another question. Somebody emailed me. Well, let's take Bob's question first. But Jennifer Kaur, who asked the question about the foreclosure, does have a question: is is this actual relief if we're going to foreclose on people?
That's a fair question. It's a balance here at the government. This isn't a grant program. The relief is by offering them the immediate capital they need to move forward. I'm not dictating what you have to take as collateral, so maybe that's a bit of a help. But it's not a grant program, and the more money I get back, the more money I can use in the future.
Okay. So Bob Porter from PCV says, we're currently the lender using iBank guarantees. Do we need to complete any type of new application for the disaster loan up to 95%?
So Bob Porter, you actually have one guarantee enrolled in the disaster program. You may not be aware, but there was a client who had some disaster needs, and so it is in the disaster program. You can work, is that Bob Porter who's nodding? Yes, it is. You have one, yes. What I recommend is connecting with NorCal. If you plan to do a number of them, you're gonna wanna put something in place, like I said, like a loan profile, so you can kind of expedite them. So they're not looking at each of them as an individual situation, and more of like as a product we can expedite. Does that make sense? Cool.
So here's the program, can you talk a little bit more about requiring small businesses not being eligible for SBA programs? It seems like everybody is eligible at the moment for the SBA programs, whether they get it or not is a different story, so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're using the term qualified. We need to reach businesses that are not qualified for SBA. And I make the distinction because, like you said, a lot of people are eligible. like the million people that applied for the disaster loans, but half of them have already been declined. I would consider those people not qualified. So that again is also a balance, right? The real true test for me to show that people don't qualify is to wait for a rejection letter. And that just adds time, and time is something that people don't have. So we really need to work with you to kind of strike a balance. There are going to be folks that we know aren't eligible. That'll be noted in your credit memo. And then, you know, for whatever reason, if folks feel like they don't qualify, that should be noted in your credit memo as well. But we're not going to be requiring a hard credit elsewhere test. We're just going to ask you to use your best judgment. And if the borrower believes they don't qualify, that may be acceptable.
Okay. And then can the loan guarantee be used for other stuff other than just payroll? The PPP is the payroll protection. Can it be used for anything, or what?
It has to be used for what we call economic injury is the term in our directives and requirements. In this situation, we're looking at economic injury from the perspective of like lost revenues or what they need to stay in business until all of this is over and they're able to recover. So I leave that kind of argument to you. It has to be for economic injury, but because you know these disaster situations are so different every time, I leave it to you to argue to me that the funds are for disaster recovery or business continuance and resilience.
Okay. And can undocumented business owners apply?
I will never ask how you identify your clients.
Okay.
That's a yes.
So that's a sort of a, and then do lenders have to be a Cdfi, or can they just be a nonprofit micro lenders that's not yet certified as a Cdfi?
Not yet certified. So at this point, we are required to be working with banks, credit unions, and Cdfis. If you were a nonprofit loan fund that has some money for this, maybe message me on the side. We may be able to make an exception. But I would have to wait and see. Right now, our policy says banks, credit unions, and Cdfis.
Okay. Can you do you mind popping your email into chat, Emily, while I ask the next question?
Yeah.
So, and the other, we have we have a couple of lenders that lend to some nonprofits. Can they also be have a loan guarantee?
Yes, we will allow lending to nonprofits. They have to have one paid employee, and a business activity that's eligible under the program. So we do run into challenges with, say, like chambers of commerce. They tend to lobby. That's not typically something that's eligible for the program. If it's a housing nonprofit, then that wouldn't work. But as long as they have an eligible business activity, a nonprofit is totally fine. And then just in case anybody asks me about faith-based nonprofits, we will do faith-based loans as well. As long as they have a business activity, we can't have the loans be for worship. So a church, I think my favorite was the Lord's Gym. It was a church that owned a gym. Like
That's
nice. Yeah, gyms, daycare facilities that are owned by churches is fine. We just can't make a loan to the church for churching. I know you understand.
And of course, you know, California, we have a lot of people here who are working in cannabis businesses. Will you guarantee those loans as well?
Yeah, if you can find a lender to make them.
Okay. What about, look, we have a liquidity issue here for our non-bank lenders, our mission-driven non-bank lenders participating in this program. Is there some kind of low-cost capital, or is there some kind of plans to do some selling on the secondary market?
I defer that question more to Isabel because I know she's working on a lot of stuff on the back end. I will say that if you plan on making loans to these targeted communities for $50,000 or less, and you're able to connect with a bank partner that would like to give you the money to do so, I can guarantee their loan to you to do that. So that's kind of another option as well. We're acutely aware of the liquidity issue, and it's definitely being worked on.
Yeah, and the only thing to add is just, yes, of course, I mean, this is something we've been tracking since I began a year ago almost, but it is an issue that we hope to try to address. I've addressed it in the private sector immediately by just jumping in with philanthropy and trying to encourage as much support as possible, and some of that has been successful with some products or things in the works. But I understand it's a huge issue. We don't have a program set up at this time, but we continue to evaluate it.
So in the works, thinking about it. So that's a possible request from the community.
Yeah.
More questions for Emily and Isabel. We have on the iBank website, they list 4 current lenders. Is that the full current list?
I believe it's now down to 3. We removed CDC since they're out of funding for this initiative. That is the current list. Between us, those folks so far I've noticed are really only helping internal clients. So as I mentioned, we're working with some other champions that as soon as they're signed up and ready to go, we're going to pop up on the website. I appreciate that a lot of you have worked so quickly to be in such a place to start using already after only a week.
Everybody's been working really hard. All of us, right? Including you guys. If the bank does make a loan to CDFIs, how large can you guarantee that loan to be?
At this point, I can probably guarantee up to $1 million. But I will say this about that. If you get a guarantee from me on a loan to you to make loans, you can enroll those loans in my program. That's double dipping. But definitely $1 million guarantee on a loan to you to make some of these loans.
Okay, so we have Sarah from Working Solutions wants to know if you can review the process, the underwriting process again, or
yes. So on this expedited product, to these targeted communities for loans under $50,000, I know that you guys really do those kind of on a product basis and not necessarily individual underwriting for each specific loan. So if you came up with a basic criteria for the types of borrowers you would be putting through the program, we could take that criteria to a financial development corporation. Once everybody was comfortable with that particular borrowing profile, then you could just start submitting loans, like in a spreadsheet, with some basic information, a little bit of backup documentation that you've agreed upon with the Financial Development Corporation. Those folks review it, turn around and send it to me later that day, and I'm approving batches in the evenings.
if the CDFI gets a guarantee, back to the CDFI seem to be interested in getting in this bank loan idea. If they get a guaranteed loan from bank to do loans, the loans still need to be 50,000 and under.
Yeah, that's the only way I'm going to do that. I need to know that you're going to hit my target population, that you're going to hit these smaller dollar loans for me, and I'm also going to be reporting that you're doing that, since I'll be required to report that as well.
What about, will you guarantee a private foundation if they lend to CDFIs?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. I can only provide guarantees to banks, credit unions, or CDFIs. That being said, I've seen foundations funnel money through those entities in order to get something done.
Yeah. And then Marcia wants to know if you're available to speak directly to a particular lending team.
Absolutely. I'm always available to chat. It may be in my garage. It's the only place my kid can't find me. But yes, totally available.
Everybody's in their garage or their living room, or
I just want to know who this guy is.
Bedroom. A housing developer lender, yes, it's not the program is Linda's gonna log off. Are there any, does anybody have any more questions? It's kind of a whirlwind, but a lot of you are familiar with the program.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want, what iBank's target populations, it might differ by org. Great.
Yeah, so we're really looking, as Isabel mentioned, on capturing folks that cannot access the SBA and need loans under $50,000 is the push.
So, and a lot of people who aren't don't have relationships. They might have a relationship with you, but they don't have a relationship with the bank. And a lot of the banks are only doing PPPs for their own clients. So it seems like, and you're not, just to repeat, you're taking the lender's kind of word for it or judgment, whether or not they've looked for, whether or not they've worked for everyone else. Yes. And Kurt, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, please make a quick comment.
I'll even start my video.
Yay. Hi, Kurt.
Hi, everybody. And Emily and Isabel, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I just wanted to provide some context for why we've got in the program and then to come out. You know, we are standing up the PPP program, as some of you are, and we have an existing Community Advantage program, as many of you know, as well. We have stood up that program for emergency relief capacity as well. And we just quickly ran into liquidity issues. So, you know, unfortunately, the PPP program provided no real easy liquidity solutions for those of us who are mission non-bank lenders. And therefore, we have to raise capital, even if it's in a line of credit, to bridge that program. And the Community Advantage program, and again, everybody knows this, but just, you know, it provides more liquidity through sale in the secondary market over time, so we can leverage our capital there more. So unfortunately, I think we did, you know, we hope to do $3 million worth of guarantees in the program, but that taps us out. So Isabel knows we're anxious to see if there are additional liquidity solutions as we move through this. But I just wanted everybody to know it wasn't anything that Emily did that stopped us from the program, or Juan Carlos or anybody else. It was really—
I blame Juan Carlos.
Yeah, right. That's right. You know, it was really just the challenge that all of us face as non-bank lenders, trying to be mission lenders participating in this program. So thank you for that.
You know, frankly, CDC, I really think, thanks, Kurt, because I really appreciate that you're doubling down on PPP. Those are forgivable loans. Like, that's important that you're doing that work. So, but I know on the other side, if you could participate in this as well, you would. So we'll continue to explore options.
Excellent.
That's good to hear. And thanks, Kurt. There's some question. Juan Carlos, please jive in. I appreciate you asking first.
I actually do want to. I want to be able to just kind of turn around and really give kudos to Kurt and CDC, because they actually, as soon as this particular program rolled out, they tried to move really quick to make as much funds available to this particular community that we're trying to reach. So unfortunately, obviously, not all of us have deep pockets, but I do appreciate what they were trying to do and really push forward. So, you know, hopefully we can continue to move forward at this point with everybody else that's going to jump on board.
Yeah, if you want to speak, totally, this is not a one-way. This is meant to be a roundtable discussion, so that that, you know, we can make sure that what we're doing on the ground is effective. So, you know, the policies that are being made, the programs that we're putting into place, how can we, you know, do that? How can we make these happen in a good, smooth way? So if anybody else wants to chime in, just I'd appreciate, yeah, if you just type into chat, yeah, like, so you can make a comment, but the floor is open to anyone who would like to comment. So until I hear otherwise, I'm going to ask the next question, and that is, when will the next allocation announcement, and how could we be on the mailing list? I'm not sure. Yeah.
So to my knowledge, today, this is the allocation. So if you're interested in participating, you know, like I said, get in touch with me. Let's get you signed up. Let's get an estimated amount in which you think you may lend under the program. But this may be it. So, you know, now's the time to step in.
Now, and so you do, it sounds like though, Emily, you do have capacity there to welcome more lenders into the program.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I've been speaking rough numbers with people, but rough numbers are rough numbers. I still need to see loans and a little bit more than that. So it's a call out to everybody. I cannot be successful with this push without your community to assist me.
Great. I have one other question that somebody had sent me and put into private chat. Does anybody else want to ask Emily how the mechanics are working on this program, or any other questions about banks lending you money and guarantees or anything else like that?
Heidi, this is Susan. I just had one thought. There are outfits like Kurt's and Opportunity Fund and well-established CDFIs that have infrastructure and capital to jump on this quickly. If you're a younger, newer CDFI and want some support stepping into the state guarantee program, I think that's a kind of service that Cameo could offer. So maybe, especially CDFI Essential starts tomorrow. I just want to put that out there, that if this is something like, oh, how do I get launched to participate in this program, we can offer some support in that regard.
And we'll rope Juan Carlos into that for sure.
We will rope Juan Carlos in. He's been very generous with us in the past. But I just think that it's easy for the established CDFIs to just jump right in, whereas if you're new to this, perhaps some support would help you.
Yeah, great. And then, okay, so yay, Bob, that sounds great.
Great.
Bob put a note in that they're gonna look at putting some money into it next week and gonna bump up that liquidity issue. And then I do have a request, if you could just repeat the fees, and maybe now's a.
Type it in. It's 2.5% on the guarantee amount, and that's one time guarantee amount, and a $250 documentation fee.
Great. Thank you for that. And then, oh, let's see. Yeah, this is, can Emily share with the group what potential structures can be considered with a disaster guaranteed, i.e. deferral, interest only, et cetera, et cetera?
That's my answer. My concerns are that the person can access SBA, that they are an eligible business that I'm willing to support, and that the use of funds is for disaster recovery, repair of economic injury, and business resilience. The rest of it, you can work out with Juan Carlos, but I've seen some I'm calling you. All that stuff seems very reasonable in this environment. So we want to set these folks up for success.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? You think of a question, if somebody else starts talking and then you think of a question. Oh, the website. Yes, I will put the website up. If you want to pop it, actually, if you want to pop it into chat,
iBank.ca.gov. I'm sending you to our main webpage. It has information a little bit about this on the main webpage. You can also go to the Small Business Finance Center to see a little bit more about the eligibility criteria. So if you go to the iBank main page, you go to programs, you select Small Business Finance Center, you'll find the eligibility criteria under the infographic that we have on how to apply. Also, Heidi's going to send out a link. It's a one-page certification to sign up to use the program. The certification essentially says you'll follow our rules, and we require you to sign it annually to show that you're interested in continuing to use the program.
Great. The questions keep coming, so we'll keep going. Hypothetically, if there's a borrower that needs more than $50,000, can you use the California Disaster Loan Program for the first 50 and then other debt capital at risk?
Yeah, we would be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Great. And then, so the criteria question, I think we answered that question, that it's on the Small Business Finance Center thing and web page that's in that Susan popped into chat. I'll just share the website. If everybody gives me a second, I can share my screen. I do have the website up, but up to, let's see. Hold on, I'm not going to share for a second. Let's get that website up so you don't see my whole messy desktop. Okay.
Perfect.
There we go. So this is what the website looks like. If I go back, you could go to the iBank. Here's, so programs, Small Business Finance Center, that's the drop down. And are you eligible? So the eligibility, it seems pretty.
It's very broad, and that's
very broad.
fine.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you just scroll down a little bit, Heidi, these are basically the terms. You kind of decide within this what you're comfortable doing.
I like to do this because it's fun. The terms. Here's the terms.
Yeah.
Might as well have fun, a little fun with the Zoom if we can. Okay. So that's the website up here. I can't draw a straight line. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And
really great. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. If you prefer Juan Carlos's touch, he's well versed at all of my responses, so he can answer your questions as well. But we're really just looking for help from your community to make this happen, and we're available to help you get there.
Yeah, I have David. Before you guys go, David Desai Ramirez wants to say something. David, could you just let us know where you're from?
Yeah, that's part of the thing I wanted to say. So I just wanted to two things. One, introduce myself to everyone. I'm David Desai Ramirez. I'm at the West Coast office of Primary Care Development Corp, which is a Cdfi that does healthcare lending and consulting. So I just started and have been on a couple of the CCCI calls, but looking forward to getting to know everyone. I just want, and thanks for indulging like the 10 questions I asked, and also the joke about the garage. No one laughed. It's all right. I'm used to getting crickets on jokes, but I'm not afraid to keep firing them. So I just wanted to say, and I say this most sincerely, like, we're doing a webinar tomorrow for a bunch of clinics, and we're going to be talking about like 10 different resources that they can access at this time of crisis. And like the last 2 weeks of my life researching all of these products, both like online and trying to track down anyone who's actually making the loans or knows a lot about the programs, has been like many times very, very frustrating. Like hearing one set of facts and then 5 minutes later another. So like, this, in just 20 minutes that I was on, I learned like so much and so much detail and nuance. So like whoever set this up, thank you. And Emily, thank you. And Juan Carlos, thank you. Like, I wish I could have done this with every program that I was trying to learn about, because you're just 20 minutes. I got like 1,000% return on investment for my time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. This has definitely been challenging times for us as well. And the stress of the public tends to rise to the surface much faster than comments like yours. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, great. We're gonna stop this conversation, but I would like everybody to stay on if they still have time. There's some important advocacy we want to talk about, and there's also been a request to share other information on other sources and programs that they can offer should the businesses not meet criteria for the state loan guarantee process. So this is like, okay, we have the federal government, and then the state is going to do what they can do, and then we'd like to share some resources. If you do the math, there's just not enough money to help every single business, which is just unfortunate. But that's just the reality.
and I will pop off.
Yeah, we'll pop off, but thanks for having us. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us and taking this time to talk to the network.
Everybody's
Yeah,
on.
everybody.
Give Isabel and Emily a nice round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, okay, so let's see. So I want to turn it over first to Marcia, and I'm going to just read the top of her email that she wrote, a little paragraph of of a letter she wrote to her representative, and it's the goal of the PPP was get money out quickly to small businesses to help them retain workers and survive until the nation was again open for business. Great goal. Extremely problematic implementation. And then she goes and lists a bunch of the problems that people have been having with implementation. So I'm going to just open it up to Marcia. And I also want to welcome Kathy Odell, who I haven't met yet. I'm very excited to meet you, Kathy. Sorry, under these circumstances. I've emailed with Marnie. Marnie, it's good to put a face to the name. So hi from the Weave team. And I'll turn it over to Marcia or Kathy, whoever wants to talk about why you did this letter and what we could do going forward, and to also maybe talk if other people are having the same issue.
I'll just start in and then I'll turn it over to Kathy. So Kathy is my successor. As many of you who know me know that this is my last year at Weave and we're in a transition year. And so Kathy's already taken over as CEO. And we're so lucky to have her because she is a very successful entrepreneur in her own right, having been involved in the startup of several different businesses in the medical device field as well as other areas as well. She also sat on the board of Pacific Capital Bank Corp for 14 years, which was the parent company of Santa Barbara Bank and Trust. So she brings really deep knowledge of banking to the role too. So we decided to contact our member of Congress for Santa Barbara County, Salud Carbajal, because in 2 weeks we're closing in on $1 million worth of requests for $10,000 emergency loans. Just to give you some context, our portfolio just hit $1 million. We usually make about $500,000 in primarily microloans, although we've expanded in a year, and get about maybe 50 applications. So we've gotten 100 applications in 2 weeks. And I'm sure the rest of you are experiencing the same thing. So our initial concern was, we're going to run out of capital. We had allocated $250,000 for this program. Clearly, that was not going to be enough. And then we started talking to the banks and the clients about what was happening with the PPP and the EIDL loans. And like some of the rest of you, our area was hit 2 years ago by, big fire. So we went through the whole disaster loan program then. So frankly, we didn't have a lot of confidence that our clients were going to get access to EIDL loans, because last time around, only 1 out of 3 of those loan applications were approved. So we contacted Salud Carbajal. We actually were on a phone call with him this morning, and he had already spoken to Speaker Pelosi about the contents of our letter. But he wants to know that other members of Congress are hearing from their constituents as well. And so I wanted to know kind of what the other lenders are doing, if you have contacted your members of Congress, kind of what your observations have been to them. But basically, we want to make sure that there is some funding in this next go round for CDFIs. for additional capital so that we can participate in this program. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Kathy and maybe Marnie if you want to make some remarks too. Unmute, Kathy.
Unmute. Okay, there we go. Okay. Night, everybody, and I will get to know you hopefully when the circumstances are a little bit. So my big concern that I saw PP announced was that the way they structured the program required banks to put up their own capital, and that simply cannot work inside the way that banks are regulated, because virtually every bank, whether it's Wells Fargo or Bank of America or Chase or whatever, they all have cap rates and they all have concentration limits that they were going to violate and would require dispensation from their regulator, like the OCC or FDIC, if they serviced all of the applicants that were going to come their way. And sure enough, we saw that as rolled out, banks started restricting it to only their own existing customers. Some of them saying only if you were a business customer, had an existing loan relationship or credit relationship with them of some kind. And so all of the things that we got back initially were saying help are locked out of the system, and or the system's overloaded and I can't get in. Virtually all our local community banks could only take a small fraction of the loans that came to them, which puts them in a difficult place because you can't explain to every borrower what a capital rate and a concentration risk is at a bank. And so those in the community are responding saying, what the heck? My bank is not supporting the community. So part of our outreach to our congressman was that the system is flawed and that they would be much, much better off if this operated through Treasury, the same way that you can have your CPA file your tax return, and if you're owed a fund, it flows directly to your bank account. There's no intermediate under. It would put all of us in the roles process. It would be much, much more efficient for the communities and clients that we serve. So that was one of the requests that we made, which Congressman Carbajal has said he did convey to Speaker Pelosi, and they will be considering. The second is that CDFIs and SBA microlenders are not part of the program. And that also, again, doesn't make any sense because CDFIs and SBA microlenders are much more accustomed to dealing with the very small businesses and micro businesses that this program was obviously intended to reach and is not reaching. So when we talked with the congressman this morning, one of the things he said was that while he appreciated suggestions and was passing them on, that we could do the most good by having other agencies that were, suffering the same thing and dealing with small businesses who were not getting to step forward as advocates. And right there, Congressman, join together as in support of this. So we wanted to let you know what we were doing and whether anybody to join in with us or take initiative on this. Again, as Marcia said, we've got requests now as of today for $960,000 that we thought was going to be a bridge for people to get to PPP. And it's a bridge to nowhere at the moment. And so we have to help everybody fix this. Marcia, I don't know, Marnie, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Then
I don't really have anything terribly important to add other than to just add, or I guess I will add to what you said, that not only are SBA microlenders not part of the program, SBA microloans are ineligible to be repaid through PPP as well. So it's sort of a double negative in that way. Also, just So these are just additional things that we need to highlight that are not functioning, you know, within the parameters that they've said. And other things include, they're still asking microlenders, SBA microlenders, to prove the no credit elsewhere test on all loans under 20,000 that they're making to these clients, which is just another sort of layer of sort of inanity there with that. So as we become, you know, aware of these things that are making it very difficult to, even more difficult to put money in the hands of small businesses, we're wanting to make sure that we highlight that so that they can address these things and try to make these funds more useful and get them into the hands of the clients sooner. So, but anyway, the congressman was very clear that he appreciated the letter that he'd received from us, but when we asked what could we do, what else could we do to help, he was very clear that it was to rally the troops, really, and particularly for statewide organizations, but for all, to write to their Congress people to let them know what needed to be done.
Yeah. So Marcia said we could steal her letter.
I was going to say, I was going to ask.
Marcia and Kathy's letter.
Yeah. His aide did mention that she thought that the content of the letter was very clear and useful. So.
Yeah, we're happy to share it.
Great. And then Gwendy did pop into chat so everybody sees, and we'll make sure everybody gets this link as well.
Yeah, I can speak about it too.
Yeah,
this is Wendy with Opportunity Fund, and thank you so much for colleagues for kind of bringing up this issue and what's going on and taking the leadership with your local elected. I think that, I apologize, I'll join video here as well. So I think right now what we're seeing with this new round of PPP is that there's a good chance some of the money is going to be set aside for CDFIs. What amount that might be is unknown, but we saw 125 billion yesterday, which we were actually concerned that CDFIs can't do. Today we saw something about 60, and that also included small credit unions and others, 60 billion again. So I did want to share, and I'm sorry that URL is so long, but so NALCAB, which is National Association of Latino Community Asset Builders, and OFN did a joint letter maybe on Monday, basically raising, I think, really similar points that this program is not only is as it's structured, it's leaving many businesses behind who will never be eligible, but the way it's been rolled out is entirely inequitable and not acceptable. And I think that hopefully got out just in time to maybe whatever new PPP money rolls out in the next couple of days will have some different strings attached to it. So I just wanted to share that I think your message was a very important timing, and it sounds like, I mean, we haven't seen Pelosi, wonderful, and Cameo, thank you, Carolina. You know, I wouldn't say that we've seen Pelosi be like the #1 CDFI supporter prior to now, but I mean, the fact that she's calling us out by name and making this one of her key stances right now, I think is a testament to all of the advocacy that everyone's doing. And then the other thing that was in my chat for folks that are on the phone is just to state, late last night, the application did come out for non-bank lenders to the PPP program. There's obviously still a lot of restrictions on that make it hard for a majority of CDFIs to participate, but I did just want to let you know that that is out now.
Okay. I just took this website down. We'll review it.
Yeah. So Elizabeth Carr from Santa Cruz Credit Union popped into, just so everybody knows, but in the chat box, there should be a little arrow next to me or next to whatever's comes up, and you can drop that down and you can chat everybody. But she said the credit union is doing PPP loans. They're regulated by the NCUA, and there's a limited dollar amount of loan based on the asset size. Both NCUA and DBO have given credit unions permission to take additional risk in a variety of areas that they promise they will not hold against them. We hope that's true a year down the road. And they're funding PPP loans in their community who are small or nonprofit, and they're so overwhelmed with applications that they need to serve their current members first. Their local bank down the street has received over 1,700 applications. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing that. So that's good to know that you are doing that. But like you said, you're doing it first for, you do have a limited amount. We understand that capability, and hopefully, so advocacy, Cameo can say that we'll send out an email to the network for sure. We'll definitely send out an email to this group who is on this call, because they're going to be they're more tapped in. So I can, Kathy and Marcia and Marnie, we can do that. We can do that for you. I would say, Carolina, we can submit a letter. Is that right? I don't think this is kind of one of those no-brainers. Everybody else, please feel, if you have reached out, can you either type in chat or raise your hand or clap or do something, indicate somehow that that you've reached out to your congressperson and said, hey, we need this to work for us.
And I think, Heidi, one thing just to compliment, it's really good to hear the initiatives that Marcia and Weave is taking. And also, as you see, there are some letters we've been trying to be as supportive to get this going. We understand the needs of the Cdfi, so please keep us updated on any initiatives. If you talk to your legislators and you feel like there is an opportunity for us to come in, let us know, and we'll be happy to support in as much as we can on that too.
Is there a different ask you want to make of us, or is that what is it?
No, what I wanted was to really keep in mind that we are all trying to be aligned in what the ask is, and just make sure that we can share the resources that we are putting out with the congressman to see that we are really looking for these kind of initiatives. So just to share that in the group would be a good idea, so we are all aware of what initiatives are out.
Thanks. There was another, does anybody have anything else they want to say about the PPP or the letter? Thanks, you guys. Thanks for taking some leadership on that and for being willing to share your letter. And we'll get it out to everybody today. Great. I did have a request earlier to share resources, but I think that she had to go. So if anybody has any other resource, oh wait, maybe not. Any other resources that they want to share, either you can email, I know everybody's busy, so I'll just pop my email into chat real quick. That resources for businesses who don't qualify for any of these programs or something that you're doing, please pop it into chat, and I'll email them also out to the group. So, well, everybody take your hands up, put your hands up in the air, and give yourself a big pat on the back. I like to end the meetings with kind of a little activity. And hi David's daughter, I'm guessing. Thanks everybody so much for all of your work, and you guys are doing great stuff. This is, our community is the ones looking out for those who are just gonna, trying to get lost in this, and we're trying to do what we can. So thank you for all of your work. If anybody has any parting words of wisdom they want to give, please do. This is your show as much as our show. All right, get back to work.
Thank you. Good day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.